We have a new Tier 11 Conqueror hull, and today I want to break down the best builds out there, as well as the really important thing you need to consider when building this ship and even driving it. Hey everyone, Derpy here, welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. As I get started, I want to of course mention that this is a PvP video. All the things I'm sharing here are my own personal thoughts, ideas, and builds, not Alliance secrets. If you don't like me sharing PvP videos, don't watch. Of course, I should also mention that apparently there are people out there selling Battle Pirates builds for $52, $25 a pop. I actually give you all my builds out there for everything literally for free, not only in YouTube videos, but also in a builds document, which I have linked in the description down below. You can check all the builds out there. You have Defender, Conqueror, Skirmish, Siege, etc. Everything you could possibly need is in a builds document out there. With that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the build. Now, the first thing you want to do is throw on the mortars. Those are the important things, and there's really just, one option there, the Ignis mortar. It's the best option out there. It is pretty good. You should note that the one weakness it might have is it does more damage to ships than it does to buildings, and it also does have a 98% evasion against anti-morts and countermeasures, so some people could put a curator, warden, etc. in their base and shoot down a few of your shots, nothing really worth considering. In my opinion, because it has a 98% evasion, but people might be using a few of those in bases out there. The base stats on the whole actually will change if your Conquest Yard is upgraded to max level. Mine's not, so your ship will be 10% better if you've got that here. It does have negative evade, some pretty high deflections across the board. Radioactive deflection is 6 million, which means it does get hurt by the new radioactive Lake of Fire mine, and a few other special abilities, including reload for all Helios or Helii in the fleet. It does have thermal on it, which makes me wonder if we're getting a new sub or if this is just here for gatekeepers. With that said, let's go ahead and jump directly into the specials. The first option is going to be an engine special, and the best one out there, in my opinion, is going to be the Onslaught engine, unless you can find an engine that boosts, say, mortar or explosive damage, building damage. I don't remember if one exists here, but Onslaught engine is the way to go. You don't want to use Tactical Onslaught engine because it means you can't use the second best special, which is the Invasion Scanner 2. Now, why I'm putting on this and why most of these, if not all the rest of the specials, will be focused on doing damage to buildings is because building damage is really, really important. The new turret we got, I think it's the Rumbler rocket turret or something like that, can get a max deflection of 6.2 billion explosive deflection, which means that your projectiles, each one of these 3 mortars, individually has to do more than 6.2 million damage per projectile. This happens by increasing the building damage and the explosive damage a ton, which is super, super important here. I've actually gone back and forth on a few builds, but decided that the max damage one is really the way to go for this. So that's the second special right here. The third one is going to be one of those damage boosting specials I talked about earlier, and this is a battery special. Most people are probably thinking right off the bat, let's go for a Conquest battery. This is a Conqueror hull, etc. It has some building damage, which is true. It has turret defense, which is true. I should mention that the base turret defense on this hull is 6k, which is a small number, and the 6.4k would just replace that value. So you only get a very, very tiny amount of benefit for using this thing. So instead, I'm going to go for one that does way more damage. You do lose some speed, which may be a downside of this thing. Maybe you get hit by halos a little bit more. That's up to you to play with, though. I'm not trying to just give you the best build out there. I'm trying to give you a few options to choose from, and then telling you the one that I'm using. Now, this is the Garrison battery that you're going to want to use. It does about 94.7% effective adding building damage. Also is better against ships than the Siege Battery 4, which only gives you 93. So 94 versus 93, it's a tiny difference, but the best special out there is going to be the Garrison battery. I should note that the 900 turret defense is less than the 6k base on the hull, so that turret defense just stays at 6,000 if I can actually find that right here. Anyway, that's the second special to do explosive damage. Next up, you're going to use another one to help do explosive damage, and this is going to be one that people should all agree on right here. It is the Desolation Warheads, which does projectile speed, splash, explosive damage, all really good things for you to run right there. The next special is going to be one to just purely increase explosive damage again, which again is really important because everything in PvP is based off deflections, so damage is super important, and that's going to be the pure explosive upgrade plus 10%. I was actually considering for a little while doing an explosive scope build, which will bring your range up to 103, which is just enough to outrange the Badger aura. I decided you don't have problems killing the Badger anyway, and as a note, if you're driving, you need to kill the Badger before you kill the Rumbler rocket turret, otherwise you can't do any damage to this thing. So kill Badgers first, then the rocket turret second, and then gates and everything else like that. Now, the explosive upgrade, like I said, really important. You could throw on 2 of these, and that would give a pretty good job here. Instead, I think that because you are doing enough damage to break deflections, it's now important to worry about increasing your reload, which you can do almost doubling how quickly you shoot, cutting your reload time in half by using the XM reloader here, plus 90% mortar reload. The math is a little more complicated because you do have that 20% applied to each Helios Helii in the fleet there. So there are a few options for you to consider. Now, slight variations on the build I've shown you here would work. You could go for 2 explosive upgrades, which will be important if things have much more deflections in the future. You could potentially go for the Conquest Battery if you want a little bit more speed there, but I think that you have Winterfangs, etc. in the fleet to distract the Halos, and you do a ton of damage, so this is probably okay as it is. For the armor specials, I'm going to advise that people use the missile armor definitely. The Halo is doing a ton of damage. Well, there are a lot of Halos and bases, I should say. You throw this on here, it will do less damage, and it does bring your deflection up to a nice round number, so that's pretty nice. For the second armor slot, you want to use whatever is actually damaging you. For most people, just hitting bases, that's probably going to be ballistic from all the decimators. The hard mount packs is the more likely thing, so you're going to want to probably throw on one of those ballistic plates. The second option is actually a radioactive plate to deal with the radioactive mine. It will increase your deflection by a fairly sizable percentage there, and you're still going to take some damage per tick. It does 8 million damage per tick. You have 6 million deflection, so radioactive armor would help out for sure, or you can just charge in with a Winterfang ahead of that and not really need to worry about that. So I'm probably going to use the ballistic armor right here. And this build right here is what I'm going to sort of finish with recommending out there. Like I said, there are a few possible modifications here, the armor ones I just talked about, and a few engine specials you could use differently. I'm of course giving you this build for 100% free, so the only thing you can't do with this is come hit my base with my builds. I'm kind of messing you with right there. But if you do appreciate the content I put out there, go ahead and just leave a comment that lets me know that these things are helping people out there. And I will have, of course, other videos out this weekend for the Brute and for the Defender tech that we have too in this bounty. With that said, I want to go ahead and say thank you to those of you whose names appear on the end screen, really just demonstrating support for the channel and things I put out here. Anyway, and until next time, this is going to be Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.